sermon today of this six-part series. Today we're going to be discussing fear and a few other things on this one. A little bit about fear. I mean, fear is just a part of being human, right? We get afraid. We're scared. These things happen. We have all sorts of triggers that causes this to happen. I don't know what you're deathly afraid of out there. I know what I get kind of super scared of, but when I first came to Arizona, I was back, a little kind of quick story here. I had planned a trip to Tucson back in May before I even was in Search and Call, before I even interviewed with you all. It just so happened that the weekend that I was here, I was able to do my second interview with you all. And I was down at Saguaro National Park. My friend is working, she's a minister, so I was hiking around, and I was just having a nice little day hike, and I was coming up on a little ledge like this, and I just was like, I'm just going to jump down, be cool and all that. I did, and I hear it. Oh my God, my stomach, ugh! I stopped, where? And I just looked back, and I saw it kind of scurry into I just saw the back end kind of go into the grass or bush, whatever. I'm like, okay, I got to go back that way. I can go this way, but I'm not looking to do a 4-mile trip. I didn't have the water with me. I was just down by this little area. I needed to go back. So I had 5 minutes. I had to work up the courage to I'm just going to go as fast as I can back this way. And I did, and I jumped real fast, and I was like, oh, I made it, thank God. Whew. All right. And I'm look, but I was up, and I'm zooming my camera, and I could see it in the book. I'm that was really cool. And I know people who've been here have been I've been in Arizona all my life. I've yet to see a rattlesnake. I was talking to Chad, who goes to church here, and he's I've never seen a rattle. I think I've seen one rattlesnake since I've lived here. He's lived here 19 years or something like that. I did it in the first weekend. So, and I love snakes. I actually do. I like snakes. But thank God that I am somewhat afraid of snakes, because if I didn't, I'd be oh, look at a cute little guy. I'm going to pick him up and hold him, and you guys would just still be in Search and Call. So, so fear, some reasonable fear is good for us. It protects us, right? It saves us at times. We got to have some reasonable fear in our lives. The National Institute of Mental Health says that phobias are one of the most common mental health disorders, that 10% of people have a phobia. I won't make you raise your hand for, sake of, privacy, but, if you have a phobia, 1 in 10, we got some people in here probably do, and 7% of the population has a kind of anxiety, a social anxiety. You may be really afraid if I said, come up here and preach today. Who here is deathly afraid of public speaking? Anybody here deathly? Oh, good, I got volunteers. Oh, 1. That's smart. I'll never ask you to speak. Everybody else, you're going to get asked now. Thank you. I just solved that problem, right? But that's a reasonable fear. We have an anxiety over that. And kids have to kind of work on overcoming that fear. And it's funny, I think that fear triggers more when we're in groups of people that we know. Why? We're afraid of the judgment that we're going to receive. That becomes a big part of it. But phobias even fall into anxiety disorders. And I'm very open. I have an anxiety disorder. I have anxiety. I have depression. My depression is not big. It's low level. But I have a social anxiety. I don't like going into groups and crowds. I look for the exit right away. I walk in, I'm when can I leave? I get there, I'm can't wait to go, right? But I have to, in my role, I have to be more social. I have to do these things. But boy, does it drain me. But I get in certain circumstances, I'll get really anxious. But I've kind of learned what that looks like and what that is and how that gets triggered and how that manifests. But before, I just didn't. But that's a real thing. Anxiety is a real thing for people. And depression, if we think about depression, it's rooted in our past. And anxiety is rooted in our future. You know what? I actually skipped a slide on you there, didn't I, Ben? Hit the next one. Yeah. And so it just kind of depends on how it manifests, but that really helped me to understand. When I was having low moments, what's causing me to feel that? Well, something there. If I'm being anxious, it's causing something here. And we have people tell us a lot of times that if you have a mental health disorder, like depression or anxiety, you somehow lack faith. I've been told this. I've been told to my face that as a minister, I should not have anxiety or depression, and if I do, I should not probably be a minister. Because it shows a lack of faith. Okay, interesting take. But that is something that has been present for a long time, right? I've heard it said, you are not trusting God enough. You just got to give God your problems, Chad, and then don't worry about anything. Well, that sounds easy. I wish I could just not worry. Get over it. We have a really unhealthy way of dealing with loss in the Western world. If you want to mimic a healthy way, look at indigenous people. They will celebrate the loss of someone for a year. Really remember and do things. But we are like, somebody dies, 2 days later, it's viewing, it's funeral, it's go, 3 weeks later, we're done, get over it. Why are you still talking about it? Man, I lost my mom when I was a teenager. I still deal with that. I'm not getting over it. I don't want to get over it. I want to remember my mom. I want to get over it. But I also think, and I'm going to kind of say, I think for men, especially, we really get hit hard with this. I had a ministry friend, she was counseling a guy recently, and he said, sorry, I'm crying, I know I shouldn't do that. She's like, oh, no. In this space, you can cry. Well, I know as a man I shouldn't cry. What? But I know what that's like. I can't show emotion. Last year I was kind of seeing a person, and I had a really tough day, and I was expressing it to her. She said, oh, poor thing. I'm so sorry that you being a white, straight man is so hard. Okay, we're done. I mean, because then I couldn't even express. I understand the privilege I have, but I'm a human. I'm a person. I had a hard day, and I don't have anybody to express it to. That's a tough spot to be in for somebody. We need people. Mental health and fears and struggles, these are real. These are real health concerns. But my response to people when they try to talk down my mental health or anybody's as a lack of faith is it's not the part that I give to God. It's the part I still got to carry. There's a part I pray away to God to help me with, but I still have to deal with the daily stuff. If I'm dealing with a health issue, right? If you're dealing with a health issue, God, man, I need your strength. I need some help. Show up, make sure the doctors have steady hands. Please, God, have steady hands, right? But I still have to deal with the health issue. If I have a financial struggle, God, help me to discern a good way forward. Help me to find the opportunity that can do a new trajectory in my life. If I'm dealing with greed and I want to have things and stuff, which I've dealt with before in my own past, help me to deal with that, God, so I don't want and overwant, and then I'm in debt and I'm broke and I'm struggling and I'm like, help me with that. But at the end of the day, I still have to go to work and I still have to pay the bills and darn it all, I still get those notices and I still got to deal with that. So it's the things I deal with on a daily basis that are still real. They're real for all of us. That's just being human. And in this passage with the disciples, we're seeing humanity on display with Jesus. I think we're seeing Jesus' response. I also think we're seeing it in the disciples. And a little context, if you're unfamiliar with the Israelites, they were not a seafaring people. It's not a big thing for who they were. And the sea is filled with such mystery at that time. It still is, but such mystery. It was seen as this gigantic power. It was a scary, scary place. They didn't know these creatures from the depth. They only saw God as having the ability to calm the seas. God is the only one who can overtake such power. I mean, those fears are still pretty real. Swimming the deep, dark ocean today, still a little scared. And they're making their way from a familiar shore this area where they are, where their people are, and Jesus is taking them to a new shore where the Gentiles are. And that was odd to them. And Gentiles, if you don't know, if you're not familiar, are non-Jewish people. So this idea they were going to socialize, get and go to these people and interact was really a very radical idea. But here's the thing with Jesus. Jesus' mission transcends traditional boundaries. And that's something for us to remember. Jesus' mission transcends traditional boundaries. Ben, hit that next slide for me. So how we think about our own ministries, our own church, our own lives, right? Fear can keep us on that shore, but are we going to transcend? Are we going to take those leaps of faith, those scary changes? And I think here Jesus is kind of pushing and showing, hey, we're gonna go beyond our safe shore. And so here they are. They're on this boat. The Sermon on the Mount just got done. They got done being preached. They're on this boat with this guy that has them really believing that they're with the Messiah. They've witnessed some really amazing things. And all of a sudden, the sea kicks up and starts rocking the boat. They're afraid. They get scared. Where's Jesus? Taking a nap. Jesus sound asleep. Jesus, I get it. That Sunday nap hits different after you get done preaching. He just got done preaching the Sermon on the Mount. I get it. He's sleeping. But they're afraid. So they go down to wake him up. Jesus, wake up. Oh my God, wake up. We're going to drown. As some translations say, we're going to drown. I think Jesus wakes up a little grouchy. The disciples are freaking out. He needs to do something. And he asks them, why are you so afraid? You have little faith. And we focus on that question a lot. And we can take that question in the moment when we think about fears and mental health and go, well, yeah, I guess we shouldn't be afraid. No. I think there's something else at play here. We can take that on the surface. No, it's okay. We can be afraid. But what the disciples forget, here's what the disciples forget, that Jesus is with them. I think they forget it. It isn't fear that's the problem, but they forget that Jesus is with them. So I want to ask the questions, do we at times forget that Jesus is with us? Hit that next slide for me, Ben. I didn't highlight that for you. Do we forget that Jesus is with us? I think sometimes we do. The disciples, they believe, we also believe, but we forget in these storms of our lives the amazing power that Jesus has. We think a lot of times, hey, I can just do this on my own. I can handle it. Or we get to the point, oh, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it to the shore. We're going to drown, as the disciples said. Well, no, we're not. We need to pause in this moment and remember that Jesus is with us. See, Jesus wasn't going to calm the storm. He was going to sleep right through the thing, wasn't he? He was good. He was taking a nap. Jesus is not going to calm your storm. Jesus also didn't prevent the storm from happening. The storm still happened. That's just how the world works. I do not believe, and I want to put a big asterisk because somebody may hear that and go, so you're telling me Jesus doing this to me? No. Not one bit. God doesn't do it. Jesus doesn't do it to you. It's just life. It's being human. One of the most beautiful things and most tragic things about being human is mortality. We only get so many seasons to enjoy, and that makes it all that much more beautiful. So Jesus is going to let the storms come. The storms are going to happen. He's not always going to calm them. But let us remember that during those storms that Jesus is with us. And that it's a chance for us to reach back to Jesus and show faith and by remembering that he's with us. But we get short-sighted. We only measure that Jesus is with us based on what is happening in that moment. I just had a good friend of mine a couple weeks back, 2 churches ago, when I was in Indiana. They became good friends of mine, got involved in a bad car wreck. His 9-year-old boy just died. Tragic. I was tore up like 3 weeks ago. Yesterday was a funeral I watched online. Me and that kid, we had built a pretty good relationship. I had this habit of not wanting to change my clothes when I get home a whole lot, so I have a sweater on. I put sweatpants on with him. I think it's a cool look. He thought it was a cool look. He's 9, you know. He always wanted to, do you like Pastor Chad? I'm going to wear that. So we would talk about that and exchange things. The dress code for the funeral was sweats and sweaters. I just lost it. Yeah, I'll cry. I mean, even right now, I'm trying to hold it together the best I can. That's tragic. How do you explain that? Why did that happen? Well, God didn't make that happen. It was simply a truck driver who wasn't paying attention. Not the devil. He's not the devil. He made a life-changing error. Tragic. But they are holding true to their faith in God because they don't know how they're going to get through it without Christ, without the church. And I can tell you the way that church has shown up and been that sunshine, I don't know how they don't get through it without the community pouring money and resources and help and counselors to the church as they have. That's how you remember that Jesus is with us, by ways people show up, by knowing that we can't get through this without Jesus. I don't know what people without faith do. I know they do something. I don't know what it is. I just know that I need Jesus to get through what I get through. I also know what we go through here is temporary. The storm is going to pass. What we go through in this place is temporary. Our table is set somewhere else. And fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision. That snake, I had to show courage and run back up the thing. Or take the 4-mile hike and show fear. Duh. I'm going to win or die. Sometimes it feels like that. It's hard to make that courageous decision of what I'm going to do, that leap of faith. Man, I don't know where I'm going or how this is going to work. I'm just going to trust. I'm just going to trust. And I know a lot of you have probably had to deal with very similar things, and you've shown up and you've trusted, and you are a beacon of hope for so many others. Because not only is courage a decision in those moments, faith is a decision. We make a decision to remind ourselves. We have to remind ourselves that Jesus is with us. We make a decision to open up the Bible and just read. My friend who lost his child, read the Psalms of David. Laments. You can be angry at God in that moment. Yeah. But God's with him. And God is with that family, and God weeps with them as God weeps with us through our struggles. Right? We make a decision to get on our knees, to sit down, to pray so Jesus can provide us with the strength and courage we need. We pray much like the disciples did when waking Jesus so we can communicate, Jesus, I'm going to drown. The storm, help. I got you. Jesus replies, I got you. That's sometimes the prayer we got to pray. And many times the response comes with people. They remind us how much we're loved. We receive the encouragement that we need in those moments. Jesus shows up through others and calms our hearts that are just like they're going to beat out of our chest, like these storms, so we can deal with the issues that are in front of us. And Jesus shows up in all sorts of forms and ways. So, don't let fear manage your decisions. Don't let them prevent us from reaching out to Jesus. Don't let our storms turn us away from faith, turn us away from a community that is vitally important in these moments. Don't let fear make us forget that Jesus the Christ is with us always, now, and forever. Amen.